Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scoberg here with Consolidated Planning Group. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. Today, we are going to be learning about Project Search, and it is an awesome organization that if you've never heard of them, you definitely want to hear about them today. So this is the first time that we have partnered with Project Search, and we're excited to bring a new topic to you. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and chartered special needs consultant. Our whole firm is nuanced in planning for families with a loved one that has a disability who may have care needs for the rest of their life. Some of us don't know. It's kind of the jury's out. We don't know. We're still hopeful and optimistic, but we don't really know how things are going to go. We help people put lifetime protection plans in place. We set up ABLE accounts. We do a lot of transition planning. And if you've attended our webinars in the past, you know that we do a lot of advocacy by way of our webinars, empowering parents and professionals just like you to give you the tools and resources that you need to be successful when planning for your loved one with a disability. Our job as parents is tough. It's tough on a good day, but when we have one child or more than one child with a disability, when you're trying to sort out all of the things you got to know when it comes to public benefits and other programs, state and federal programs, it starts getting very convoluted and very confusing. So you're not alone, and we stand ready to help with those things. So I want to allow as much time as we can for today. So we're gonna dive right in, and they're gonna talk to us about Project Search from a housekeeping perspective. We are in webinar mode today, which means that we can't see you or hear you, but we do know you're there, and we are glad that you're here. And we do invite you to put your questions in the chat box today. We'll be getting to as many questions as we can during the time that we have together. So having said that, everybody is going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording, so you don't have to take notes on everything that you hear today. You are going to get a copy of the slides. And all of our past webinars they live on our YouTube channel. So this one will live there as well. The Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel has over 600 webinars on planning for special needs. So if you can think of a topic, it's probably out there, and we hope that that will help you on your journey. So having said all that, thanks, ladies, for being here with us today, and we are excited for you to take it away.
Well, thanks so much, Allison, for having us today. We're very excited to share about Project Search. So kind of what is Project Search? First, we're going to tell you how it even got started. In 1996, back that long ago, Erin Riley was the nursing director of Cincinnati Children's. Allison, if you could go with like 2 slides up, maybe. There you go. Thank you. So Erin was the nursing director at Cincinnati Children's in their emergency department. Cincinnati Children's is one of the largest pediatric hospitals in the world, and we have a very large emergency department. And she was looking for people that could stock and do other very necessary jobs. She also knew from a social justice issue that young people with disabilities made up at least half the population at the hospital and in the emergency room, but we didn't do enough for these young people after their health care. And so she reached out to the school where I worked to say, hey, do you think some people with disabilities could work here? And we said yes, and we sent some students down to the hospital to work. And what we found out in the first year of working together is that these young people really needed training. So we created a 9-month training program where students have intensive internship experiences and gain the skills necessary to go to work. So that's how it started. We started with one program in Cincinnati, not really expecting or thinking about it getting any bigger. And now we have 783 programs as of this morning around the world.
If you go back one slide, Susie, I just want to mention the picture on the left is Erin about 15 years ago, maybe even a little longer than that. But those 3 individuals are still working at Cincinnati Children's today. So they're celebrating over 20 years of employment in Cincinnati Children's. And so that's something that we really are excited about and proud, because we can actually go see them. Susie just did an interview with Mary in the picture a few months ago. So it's fun to be able to go see them and see the great retirement and healthcare coverage that they have and that they'll enjoy for the rest of their lives.
Mary's a patient transporter, and Eric and Paul still work in the emergency room, and they switch between stocking medical equipment and stocking linens. And all three of them work full time, 40 hours a week. They probably make a great salary. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure they make a great salary after 20 years. Mary has a side hustle. She is a photographer and creates gift items with her photography on them. So that's pretty fun too.
So the cool thing, and you and I were just talking about this, and so we have people that attend these webinars from all across the United States, not just in Texas. So you guys have programs across the United States. It's not just in Ohio or in any one place. In fact, you guys are even international. You guys have programs outside of the country as well. Is that right?
That's correct.
Correct. We're in 9 countries, including the UK, so England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Italy, Portugal, Iceland, Australia, Canada. I might have missed something.
Impressive.
We are in 47 states, but Joy is working hard to get some programs in North Dakota, which is one of the states
They're
where we are
actually
not.
working on signing the license right now.
Yes.
So
So we're very excited about the growth. I want to start with this story because we're going to give you some statistics in a few minutes, and data is great. Data certainly helps tell the story, but not as much as maybe a more personal story. So this is Gretchen. Gretchen was one of the first students in Project Search. She also still works at the hospital, but one of her earlier jobs was to stock the NICU. And as everybody knows, the NICU is where our early babies and our babies at risk are thriving and kind of being cared for in the NICU. And so Gretchen walked into a room to stock it with linens and some medical supplies and noticed the baby in the incubator and said to the mom, "What a cute baby." The baby happened to have Down syndrome. Gretchen did her job, walked back out of the room. A few weeks later, the mom wrote a letter to the president of the hospital and said, "I got great care. The nursing staff was wonderful. They took care of my baby. She's doing well. However, what made a huge difference for me was this young woman who came into my room, did her job, and left." And she said, it demonstrated to her that I can have high expectations of my daughter. I know my daughter will someday go to work in a fabulous place and get the training that she needs to be a competitive adult. So if you don't remember anything else from this hour, just remember Gretchen and Gretchen's story. So who do we serve? So this is a nice little diagram that shows in the US what kind of disabilities do the interns have that go into Project Search. You can see the 2 biggest pieces of the pie are autism and intellectual disability. The program was created for students with intellectual disabilities, so we're happy that it's still the same, that it's still the biggest, but autism every year kind of creeps up, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And then all the other disabilities kind of in the green and other colors. So host business industry sectors so Project Search lives in a host business. So the entire program, and we'll show you in a minute how that looks, but the entire program resides all day, every day. They are immersed in a host business, whether that's Cincinnati Children's or Fifth Third Bank or Xavier University or Dow Chemical in Seadrift, Texas, or the Texan Gaylord, or wherever we are, it resides in a host business, and that's where the interns come every day. So you can just see here who some of our industry sectors are. Joy, you want to talk for a second about all the different Texas sites that we have?
So we are, Texas is one of our largest states. We have about 33 programs. We are in a lot of hospitals, some Ascension Seton hospitals. We're at Baptist Health, a lot of different hospitals. We're in distribution centers in Texas, Epiroc, which is a drilling company, medical, well, the name's escaping me right now, but we're in a lot of different industry sectors in Texas. And one of the questions that I just saw pop in the chat was, do we only work with school districts? In Texas, we only have high school programs, but in other states, we do have some adult programs. And so that's something, if you want more information on, you can contact us, Susie or I, or just project search at cchmc.org. You can visit our website, which is projectsearch.us, and there will be a link there where you can contact someone. But just to answer those questions, depending on what area you're in, there will be different offerings. So we're really excited about Project Search in Texas. So Susie kind of already went over this, but for the 2022-2023 program year, we had 554 programs in the United States. We're really excited because Canada is growing rapidly, Australia is growing rapidly, and Italy is also growing. So we're excited about the growth that we have, not only in the United States, but throughout the world.
For example, Canada's going to start 8 new programs next year. Joy and I just got back from Australia a few weeks ago, and we're going to be starting at least 4 new sites every year for the next couple years. So you can kind of see that. Joy addressed the question about school districts. Probably 85%, I would say, 80 to 85% of our programs are for high school students, and then the other 20% are for adults. And it really just depends on where you live and what that state has done. For example, we have no adult project search sites in Florida, and yet in Tennessee we have 4 or 5. So it just kind of depends on what that state has done.
So these are our current stats, and Susie just mentioned that we got back from Australia. We were there for much of a month of January, and whenever I present this slide, I talk about the 48,906 people served since 2010. And I always used to say, times that times 5, because for every person that we've served, you can think about the downstream effect, like the effect on the family and the business. So let's times that number times 5. When we were in Australia, when we presented this slide, one of the ladies in the room said, we just did a study, and this is Australia, but for every person with a disability that's hired, the impact is 20 people. And I about jumped up out of my seat because I was so excited that they did a study. So mine was just a guess. They actually did a study, and it was much higher than I had anticipated. At 5, it was 20. So just think about that as you think about one individual going through Project Search, the impact is much larger. 92% of our interns actually complete the program. 72% of all of our graduates gain employment within 9 months, and 64.8 meet the enhanced Project Search definition of competitive employment. So we're going to show you what that definition is next.
So we really want people to work full-time if at all possible, and we don't consider anything less than 16 hours a week a real job, because we know it's hard enough to make ends meet on a typical salary. So we count anything at 16 hours a week or more the prevailing wage. So that, for instance, at Cincinnati Children's, our lowest entry-level salary is $15 an hour. So we would not expect any of our students to make any less than $15 an hour. So that would be like the prevailing wage. So whatever that entry-level wage is for a person, then our students should get the same as they enter the workforce. Non-seasonal means, not just a Christmas job or not just a summer job. And integrated setting means with and without people with disabilities. So if someone got a job at a Goodwill store and it was all people with disabilities, we wouldn't count that. So this is and we think it's fairly strict. And we are always urging our teams to do 16 hours of work a week or more. You can see here on this slide where our average is 24. So obviously people are working more than 16. So that's good. So 72% employed and an average of 1383 per hour. So when you think about that, our Ohio's wage per hour is much higher than, let's say, Georgia. So it just kind of makes an average there. You might be wondering why we only have the class of 23 there and not the class of 24. We give every program 9 months to find that best job. So we don't want somebody to just run out and get Joy a job at the grocery store bringing in carts when she's trained all year in materials management, logistics, things like that. So we want to find the best possible job for every one of our interns. So we are just now collecting the data on the class of 2024, and we'll have that ready by our summer conference.
Which is in
Do
Texas.
you guys work with like benefit counselors and stuff like that? Because some kids are getting, childhood disability benefits or DAC benefits under a parent's record. Some kids are getting SSI and there's limitations and that kind of thing. And do you guys have a team members that would work with the family on that so that way they don't mess up any critically important benefits that they are getting?
Every project search program has a team. And we always recommend that someone on that team contact the benefit specialist and do that early in the program. And we can talk about like employment planning meetings and where that typically happens. We are not specialists in that, but every local team usually has somebody in their area that can do that.
Yes. So this slide has a lot of information on it, but we want to kind of break it down for you. So for the 2022-2023 year, those graduate jobs, so the interns, there were 2,478 of them. This is a list of the jobs that they got. So you can see 486 interns got food service jobs. And then that equals 19.6 of those individuals of that 2,478. That last column is showing what the overall percentage of the United States of those working. So 4% work in food service. So we're over that. We're almost 20% of our individuals get jobs in food service. Well, our goal is to try to level out those different job types. We just want to show this, and this does show that our interns, or I should say graduates, can obtain very hard jobs. Like they can do complex tasks, which are shown in this list. Susie, anything you want to add there?
No, I mean, we're always trying to kind of move the line a little bit in terms of having more and more jobs reflect the internships that the students did. And again, that's why that extra 9 months at the end of the program to look for that best job.
There were some comments in the chat box, darn, I'm in Texas. Guys, there are tons of programs in Texas, but the key in Texas is there are not programs for above age high school. Some states have programs for older adults with disabilities. And in Texas, those programs are for specifically people that are still in school. And what my question is on that, it's not like a magic age of 18. So if a lot of our kids stay in school until age 21 or 22, are they still candidates? Like if they're in an 18 plus program or
Yeah.
still with the school district, they're basically still eligible. Is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
And they would have to be at least 18 to be involved in project search. So most of our students are right in that window that you said, Allison, between 18 and 21.
Yeah.
This is our member portal. We're so excited about it. It's kind of the back end of our public website. It's for all of our teams and the staff that are involved in those project search programs. It has a live ticker, as you can see right there, kind of where we are right now with with our programs, but it also gives teams information on training. We have a wonderful video library that has about 200 videos that are curated from all our project search programs all over the world. We wrote our own employability skills curriculum. In fact, we wrote a couple, and all our curricula is stored there in that teal card. So there's lots and lots for our member portal, and it also keeps all our data. All the data that you're seeing is culled, if you will, from the Project Search member portal. And people put in their data of their interns. We also are encouraging people to put in long-term data. We at Cincinnati Children's are certainly entering our long-term data, things like Gretchen, like how long has she been at Cincinnati Children's Hospital? How many hours does she work? What's her job title? Things like that. So we're trying to keep that kind of long-term data as well.
One question that I have for people that have kids that are older than like the guideline for Texas, and again, there's people from other states, and your state may have programs for older adults with disabilities, so you can check on your state. But one of the questions that I have is for Texas. Like, if we know that there's a list of employers that work with Project Search and they have for years, and they're great employers, they're known for working beautifully with individuals with a disability, is it valuable, or is it worth checking into on the family's own accord? Like, if they wanted to check with Dow or DuPont or whoever they check with, because they may specifically have internal programs that they're running to hire people with disabilities?
Yeah, there's certainly disability friendly companies. I believe there's a list that comes out once a year of disability friendly companies. But the companies that we are in, or the host businesses that we are in, certainly have an understanding of how to work with people with disabilities. And we have, for instance, Cincinnati Children's has seen the value in those employees with disabilities, and they've actually hired follow along support professionals that can come alongside any of those employees to help them retain their job, get a different job, things like that. So it certainly, if if a business has a project search program, they are typically very disability aware. They have a lot of awareness in their business.
I know that Houston has a chamber, a disability chamber of commerce that was started through a project from one of the kind of the grassroots state projects. But do you know where a person would go about getting that list, that annual list that comes out for companies that are well known for hiring people with disabilities or good to work with?
I will look for that. It's escaping me the name of the organization, but I'll look for it because I think I've saved some of their emails.
Yeah, let us know, because when we send the slides out to everybody, we'll send a link to that website as well,
Okay.
so that way they can do a little.
And it's also not unheard of that we might someday start an adult program in Texas. It's really all about the state organizations and how they help to fund the expansion of Project Search. And so, you know, if somebody has a really great relationship with Texas VR, we can certainly talk about it. This slide is probably one of my favorite slides because it really talks about our vision and mission. We have high expectations of our interns that every intern can work or they wouldn't be in the program. So that attitude of high expectations influences our behavior. And I don't just mean our behavior, like Joy and my behavior. I'm thinking of our team at National Project Search, but all the teams that have Project Search programs, that the instructor and the skills trainer have high expectations of the students, which influences their behavior to set up robust internships and a very robust program so that the students are gaining the skills they need to go to work, which results in that action in the internships of them learning skills and then leads to success in competitive employment. So we really just want to highlight these 4 steps really lead to the end goal of what we want as competitive employment. Let's skip this slide. We want to just keep going. So we said earlier that Project Search was a partnership, and it's really important to know that who those partners are. So first of all, it's the interns and their families. And the interns learn about the program, maybe through school, maybe through their teacher. Families learn about it. We have open houses, things like that, and they learn about the program. We always have a host business, and Joy mentioned a couple of those in Texas. We always have what we call a community rehabilitation provider. So one of the big providers in Texas is Quest, and they are the provider for several programs, but it could be a Goodwill, it could be an ARC, if you've heard of ARC.
And
So
also, Susie, in Texas, they are referred to as employment support providers.
okay.
Yeah.
We always have a school district. So it might be, I don't know, help me, Joy, in Texas. Somebody ISD.
Austin, yeah, Austin ISD, Houston ISD, Dallas ISD. We're with a lot of the big ones. El Paso ISD, Northeast ISD.
But so for instance, in Ohio, we have a lot of career tech schools that are supporting a Project Search program. So Great Oaks Career Campuses or Butler Tech. So a lot of CTE schools in the Ohio area or the Oklahoma area support Project Search. Our long-term support, so DD Services in Tennessee, it would be called DID. In Ohio, it's DODD. So just your long-term support, developmental disability, follow along services. And then of course, state VR. So those are the partners that work together in every program to build a Project Search program. We don't do a lot of marketing to get new sites. It's kind of word of mouth. And so, I mean, we do marketing internally in each of the sites to help find families and interns, but anyway, we start new programs in lots of different states, depending on how many we have and how that looks.
I just
So
want to clarify because there is a little bit of confusion in the chat box. So one person says only 18 and older in Texas. So the bottom line is it is 18 and older, but they still need to be in school, some kind of school program, even if it's an 18 plus program. There are not programs for adults out of school in Texas for Project Search. There are many programs through the Workforce Commission, Workforce Solutions, Vocational Rehab are some other programs. So it's not like you're just done and your loved one can't find a job. But I just want to be clear because we have other people from other states that may not be the case for your state. And there may be programs for adults in your particular state, but we were speaking of Texas on that. So there was kind of a lot of back and forth on that.
Typically
thanks,
in
Allison.
18 to 22.
So for instance, California has many more adult programs than high school programs. Our programs in the UK, almost all of them are adult programs. So again, it just depends. I said that Joy and I were just in Australia. They are starting only adult programs. Okay, this is a great slide because it's nice and simple and it kind of talks about the program itself. Most, I would say 90% of our programs follow a regular, typical academic year. So beginning in late August, ending in late May, kind of what you're used to if you have kids and they're going to school or when you went to school. Of course, like Joy and I got so turned around in Australia because of course their school year is just the opposite. They start in February and go till December. But anyway, in the US, this is a very typical Project Search layout. So they start in August, probably mid-August, most programs, and they start with a 3-week orientation, an orientation to work, an orientation, maybe that's not the right word, an orientation to the host business for sure, an orientation to the employability skills that they'll need to learn to eventually go to work. They build a resume, we front load our curriculum in terms of building healthy relationships at work and social and communication skills, workplace safety, those kind of things. We introduce them to all the internships that are available in our host business, and we begin to make what we call matches between interns and internships. based on the students, what we call their SNAP, their strengths, their needs, their abilities, and their preferences. And then the rest of the year, they spend 10 weeks, 10 weeks, 10 weeks in each of these internships. The internships are meant to build on each other, build skills, but they're also meant to give interns a taste of 3 different kinds of work in that host business. We do have these transition weeks built in between the internships. That is, those are not vacation weeks. Those are on-site, and then a deliberate transition from internship 1 to 2 and internship 2 to 3. There's a lot more that goes into it, but basically that's their year. They are following the district calendar of the local school district. So when they're off for Martin Luther King Day or Easter break or winter break or Labor Day, they're going to just follow that local calendar. So every calendar is going to look a bit different depending on where they are, when they start, when their breaks are, all of that.
I have a few questions because we were talking about age 18 for Texas. And so well, my question is so if I have a senior in high school and they're not 18 yet in August, but let's say they're going to turn 18 in October, can they still be in the program, or do they enter late, or they miss the deadline, or how does that work? And so I guess what I'm thinking about is these students that might be a senior and maybe they're not going to go into a transition program. Maybe they are going to graduate in May, but they're not quite 18 just yet in August when they start their senior year.
That'll be up to the team, and that'll be up to the school district and the host business. We typically don't start anybody before 18 because of liability, and maturity, and making sure they have all their credits for graduation and all of that. So that would need to be a specific discussion with that team. And we could advise them, but at the end of the day, that team will make that decision. So
got
El
that.
Paso might make a very different decision than Columbus, Ohio.
Well,
And one of the
go ahead, please, Joy.
considerations, one of the considerations is that the way the funding for the program works, they need to be enrolled in school. If it's a school-aged program, they have to be enrolled in school so that the school's getting the funding to fund the instructor and a paraprofessional to support the interns in the program.
Joy, as I mentioned, we do a lot of transition planning, and some of the things that we talk about, and everybody's situation is vastly different. But one of the things that I think about from a financial planning perspective is if we have a child who's going to have some form of care needs for the rest of their life, we have our whole life to pay for them. When they're still in the public school, if they're happy in the school system, if they're growing, if they're learning, if they have community, just because they stay post age 18 doesn't mean that they have to stay until 22. And this program might be a program where it makes sense for them to stay that extra year so they can get this. What I can tell you from my clients that have been in this program, their kids are thriving. Their kids got full-time jobs after all of this at major corporations. Their kids have 401ks. Their kids are making a good salary. They're not getting public benefits because they're making enough. And the families that have been involved, it was life-changing. So it's not small. So I think that as parents, as we have doors that we're walking through and things that we're considering, that's why the careful planning goes in to play, and taking a deeper dive with this. Is this something that would be a great fit for my child? Would I need to wait? Would I need to keep them in the school in the 18 plus program? Most of our kids with intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, autism, ADHD are behind their peers from a maturity level. So an extra, 9-month school year is usually not making or breaking them. Now, I have worked with families where their kids were most unhappy in the school and they couldn't wait to get out, right? So I think everybody's situation's a little bit different, but it's worth considering if that's what it would make them make the age category to be able to participate.
And that's one of the unique qualities about Project Search, is it that it takes them out of the high school and sets them into the host business. And oftentimes the change in expectations in that host business are what makes the change in the intern.
That's a really great point, Joy. Sometimes school just isn't for everybody, whether you have a disability or not. And sometimes students are bored with their post-high school experiences. And so Project Search is all of a sudden a place where they belong and where people value their input. So sometimes it's a great alternative, but like you said, Allison, sometimes they're doing well in a post-high school environment and they need extra time to work on those employability skills before they start something like Project Search. Project Search is meant to be their last year. So what we don't want is people coming to Project Search, getting all these employability skills, and then going back to high school. So we really...
So you said something that I'm not sure that we understand, and I want to make sure that we're clear on this. So basically, if, for instance, I sign my kid to stay in public high school post age 18, they're still signed up with the district, but if they're involved with Project Search, they're not at the school working. So even though you signed them up and they're going to stay post age 18 on the district rolls, they're basically, if they're in the Project Search program, then they're not doing the daily activities that they have once known at the school. It basically, everything changes.
Correct.
Very
Yep.
interesting.
So they're, and so let's look at the next slide, because this slide, because it kind of tells what their day looks like. So right now, most of our Project Search programs are involved in choosing students for next year. And then we'll be doing lots of work with them over the summer to things like independent travel training for them to get to Dow or Baylor Scott and White Hospital or wherever they're going. So once they start the program, and once they're past that 3-week orientation time, this is what their day looks like. So they start their day typically at 8 o'clock, which is a pretty normal start for a high school. It might be a little bit later, but they start at 8, and our employability skills curriculum covers some of these topics, lots of other topics, but some of these. So they would be working on employability skills. We don't do any straight academics. Any academics that we would do would be related to employability skills. And then at 9 o'clock, they all leave and they all go to different departments. And that's a really important concept, that they're all in different departments. So Joy might be in materials management, and Allison might be in stocking on a patient floor, and I might be in patient transport.
Yeah.
So we're all different places. And the staff then, so every Project Search program has an instructor and at least one skills trainer. So there's at least 2 staff on site all the time with the program. And those 2 staff, or 3 staff, depending, are rotating through these departments, checking on students, teaching new skills, maybe figuring out an accommodation, maybe creating a picture checklist, maybe working on productivity, maybe discussing with the manager some challenges that they're having, whether that's learning the task and then figuring out how to break it down even further. They might want you to do some education to their department about disability awareness. So every day we try to have eyes on all the students in their internships. We might skip a day or 2 as they're kind of getting more independent, but for the most part, we're there checking on them, evaluating them, getting honest feedback, teaching new skills, and then hopefully what we call building a pyramid of skills so that they have the best resume of skills possible when they leave the program to find a competitive job. So after their internship, they go back to the training room at the end of the day to do some reflection, maybe some journaling, maybe some planning for the next day, maybe reviewing a challenge. Let's say that Joy keeps forgetting her badge, and if you don't have your badge, you can't get to your internship. So maybe we're all brainstorming with Joy, and we're trying to give her some great suggestions on how to remember her badge every day. That seems to be a common one in the beginning of the year. Or stamina. their stamina is always a challenge in the beginning of the year. So maybe we're brainstorming with everyone how to build up our stamina. And then they go home, and hopefully they go home independently, maybe using a public bus or some kind of adult transportation. But that's what their day looks like. So you can imagine that. Go ahead, Joy.
So one of the things that we do is the designed in the program is how to match interns to internships. So you really have to understand the intern. We have tools for kind of a casual assessment or a very formal assessment called the VocaFit internship matching or VocaFit assessment. And we also teach our teams to understand the value of a good versus a bad match. Susie, did you want to add something?
Just that it's really important to make that good match between intern and internship. It gives the interns and the departments more confidence to work in us when we make good matches.
So the next slide is the SNAP, which is an informal assessment. So it just determines the strengths, needs, abilities, and preferences of the intern. And so that's one way, which is an informal assessment. And then as we talked about, there are formal assessments, and VocaFit is one of the formal assessments. When you have a project search program, you actually do have access to the VocaFit platform where you can do an electronic assessment on the intern. You can actually print that off and do it paper and pencil as well. But if you do it in the system, then it will actually spit out some reports. So if you go to the next slide, I think there's a slide about the vote. Yeah. So this is a VocaFit formal assessment. So it really helps you once you assess the intern, it shows you what types of jobs that they might be successful in. So this intern might has a lot of green area for the hotel front desk clerk. And so that means they have strengths, and there's only a few cons, but you can see in that yellow area, that's where we want to target because that's where there's room for growth for the intern. So that's just a quick look at a formal assessment called VocaFit.
VocaFit was actually developed by two occupational therapists at Ohio State. They had a program at Ohio State and felt that there needed to be some better ways to match interns to internships and then interns to jobs. And so they created that for us, and we love it.
Some of our kids have gone through VR and they've done vocational evaluations where they went in and did a vocational assessment, and it was like over 3 to 5 days. Is this similar to that, or is that the same, or do you ever use that data from VR?
VR,
Sure, if we had that data, we would use it, but this is very different. This is this assessment takes really only about 20 minutes and then 20 minutes to match, to do the internship one and then match it, but it can also provide lots of other reports for you. There's so many ways you can use VocaFit, but to get the basic data, it doesn't take that long, but we do update VocaFit 4 times during the year because we know we're going to get growth.
Exciting.
So when we build our internships, it's really important that we build them so that they are robust for the interns. Joy likes to say, we want to stretch the interns, not stress the interns. And so we're always thinking about those yellow skills that you just saw, that what are those? Because we think of those as emerging skills. So how can we move those to the left so that they can become green skills? Because greens are we do everything in high, some, and low, so that means the student has a high ability to do that skill. So we're focusing on the current skill level and then providing challenges to that level of performance so that he can go higher or she can go higher and higher. We're again adding stretch goals, and then always thinking about, how do we teach the skill? Do we have to modify the skill? Do we have to take pieces of the skill out and teach it just that little bit and then put it back in? Do they need an accommodation? If so, what's that accommodation? All of that. So we call it the Just Right internship. We also often stagger starts. So think about, I don't know if any of you are in the restaurant business where they have soft rollouts of a new restaurant, or retail, they so often do the same thing. So that's what we're doing here. We're kind of easing the students into those internships so that we can give them the maximum level of support that they need, especially those first couple days. I won't go into the details, but you can just imagine that we're kind of slowly rolling those interns out into their internships, providing lots and lots of support as they get to know the tasks and their coworkers and their managers. So this is as simple as it looks. It's just kind of a little wagon wheel, and it's just showing you that we're constantly rounding the wheel, checking on students. We are supporting the students and supporting the department, and that's probably a really important piece, that we are supporting the department as much as we are supporting the intern. Joy, tell your story about when you were a manager and had interns.
Well, before I got this job, I was a manager in the scheduling center at Cincinnati Children's, and I had an internship rotation in my department. And as a manager, it really did not take a lot of my time because the team, being the instructor and skills trainer, really were there to support the intern. So the area that the intern worked alongside typical employees was right next door to my office. And so the intern would come in for the day, and the instructor or skills trainer would come along and check on them. Sometimes, the intern doesn't even know they're being checked on, because it's not like they have to go up and touch them. They can just observe them from afar just to make sure they're on task. And so then they would walk past the skills trainer or instructor would walk past my door, give me a thumbs up, or if they waited until I was off of a call or finished with my task, then they would come in and we would have a discussion. It was always quick. One time the instructor stopped by to tell me that one of the intern that was in my department at that time was having a really hard time managing her stress level. And so she had worked on a plan with this intern to, when she felt like she was going to have a breakdown, she had to walk past my office, go into the restroom. She had 5 minutes, and then she had to come back past my office and back to get back on task. And it worked well. I did not have to have a timer out. I just had to be conscious that I saw her walked past and that she came back. So the teams really make it easy as a manager or mentor to really support the program and give them the canvas for learning that the host business provides.
So we have a lot of professionals that are on here today, and professionals that are working in the public schools throughout Texas. And if they are interested in maybe the program, is not in their school, but they want to get it on board, what do they do? Do they need to have a liaison in their school, or do they just reach out? How does that work?
Just reach out to Project Search at cchmc.org, or like I said earlier, you can go on to projectsearch.us, and there you can find out a lot of information. That's where I would suggest that you start. And I see that John is on the call. He is an instructor, a Project Search instructor. So you can reach out to me. Susie just put my email in the chat. And again, projectsearch.us is going to answer a lot of your questions, and then you'll just reach out to somebody at Project Search and they'll get back to you. If it's a general email box, they will route it to the correct program specialist, which is what Susie and I are, depending on what state you're from.
Now,
So if there's a Texas question, just go ahead and email Joy, because Texas is her state.
yes.
If you're not from Texas and you still are interested in starting a program, you can email either one of us, and if it's not our state, we'll get it to the right person.
You mentioned before we started this meeting, when we were chatting, that you guys work very closely with Workforce Solutions, VR, and these programs that are available. All states have vocational rehab, some form of vocational rehab or services to get individuals with disabilities to work. So if you're not in Texas, your state has programs as well. But most of our schools, our public schools in Texas, our high schools, have a VR counselor assigned to that school. And a lot of our professionals that are on here today, they know exactly who their VR counselor is. Is that worthy of chatting with their VR counselor about Project Search and taking a deeper dive that way? Is that another door to kind of go through this?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. If they don't know about it, Leanne Godinez is our statewide coordinator for Texas, and she is employed by Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And they can contact her, and she would be more than happy to give them more information about Project Search.
Awesome. We've done entire webinars with vocational rehab and the Texas professionals. Those live on our YouTube channel, but I do know that most of the schools, definitely the public high schools, even some of the private high schools do have counselors there. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. State vocational rehab is involved in most states very heavily in the growth and maintenance of Project Search programs. We have what we call statewide coordinators, and many of those are represented by State VR. So State VR is a good vehicle to go through again, or just email one of us and we'll point you in the right direction. Allison, how are we doing on time?
About 9 minutes left.
Okay.
There's about 9 minutes. We'll have a
I
hard
didn't
stop
know,
at 1
you
o'clock.
need some time at the end to wrap it up though, right? Okay.
We want you to get through your slides. This is awesome, and this is what we're here for today.
Okay. So when we think about training, just kind of some simple things to think about in terms of what are we expecting of managers and mentors and our staff. So as we all know, when we're learning anything, maybe it's a new app on your phone or maybe a new recipe that you're trying or something, you want to see somebody demonstrate the task initially. That's why some things, you know, on YouTube are so great, because I can actually see somebody doing what I'm trying to do. And so we're going to teach a small chunk, and that makes it a little more doable for the department to think, oh, I don't have to teach the whole thing at the same time. I can just teach a little bit at a time. Always check for understanding. So these are some of the things that we're teaching the managers and mentors. So make sure that, have that intern show back to you what they're doing. Everybody on this call knows all of this, but again, these are some of the simple, hints and teaching strategies that we give to our managers and mentors so that they feel confident in working with our interns. Keep going. And this again, I call it the prompting wheel, just kind of what are all the different ways you could prompt some learning and initiate some learning. And so again, helping managers and mentors to know that there's so many different ways to teach something, and that you're going to have to vary it depending on your intern, but you can try all kinds of different things. And we always suggest modeling first, like just try demonstrating it first before you go too far, and then use precise directions and specific praise. Sometimes we talk way too much. I certainly have a tendency to do that. So this is just another example that we help managers and mentors know that they're not, if they try to teach something and it doesn't work, well, I'll try a different way. And we're all getting into AI, and that's super fun.
Are there unacceptable, I hate to use the word unacceptable, but severity of disabilities that would preclude them from being a candidate for this program? Like we had someone that wrote in that said that their child has little gross motor skills and almost zero fine motor skills, but would be classified as a medical quadriplegic. And is that an impossibility? And I'm, again, not a naysayer, but like we have, like we talk about housing sometimes, and there's acceptable risk and unacceptable risk and things like that of like, what is a good fit? How does that work?
So we've certainly had students in wheelchairs be very, very successful. Now, a quadriplegic is obviously going to be more challenging, but I would never say no off the bat until you met that person and see what their SNAP, look at their SNAP and see what other skills they have. We do have a very, wouldn't say strict, but a fairly comprehensive application recruitment and selection process. But we're not selecting to weed people out. We're selecting to figure out what kind of supports they need in order for them to be successful. And that might be medical, it might be behavioral, it might be safety, it might be academic, it could be kind of a wide variety of things. So, like I said,
The
right
bottom
now,
line is it's case by case and it's very individualized, and you guys want to put somebody in the program that can succeed and move forward. So you guys do that on a case by case basis. What about nonverbal autism? So maybe they're pretty independent with their activities of daily living, but they're nonverbal. Have we had fits for that?
well, I think about a young man who works at the hospital right now. He's nonverbal. He's in a power chair. He uses a voice, he has a little voice box, and he has some pre-programmed sentences and phrases in there that he uses during the day.
We
And
had
he's-
a project search at one of our project search conferences. We had a young woman that was is nonverbal, and I believe she was a skills trainer, and then she had a lot of skills trainers under her, and she just was nonverbal, but you forgot it about 5 minutes after she started using her phone to talk. You totally forgot that she was nonverbal.
yeah,
That's awesome. That is awesome.
again, like you said before, Allison, case by case, figuring it out. The nice part about selecting students in March or April is that then you have a couple months to figure out how are we going to support this person? What do they need? So for instance, we took a young woman with Down syndrome who had just been diagnosed with diabetes and lived with her dad. And so her and her dad, we referred them to the diabetes clinic at Cincinnati Children's. They went there over the summer. She really, really did great in terms of learning. She got a pump and learning how to like read the pump and read the numbers and all of that. And her dad kind of worked out a system that as soon as she got to Project Search in the morning, she called her dad, she read her dad her numbers. They talked about what she should do in terms of insulin and all of that. And it worked out beautifully. So, you know, that was just one medical situation. But it worked out great. Joy, you want to talk about breaking this task down?
So Susie and I got to go film this video where we followed Claudia around, who's in the blue shirt, with Meredith, who was the skills trainer. And Meredith was actually the skills trainer when I was a manager. And Meredith has such a great, very quiet technique for instructing. And one of just a very quick, simple example is, do you see how the IV pole has kind of V's between the wheels? She kept showing Claudia how to put the V put the wheel of the wheelchair between the V, and it made it easier for Claudia to navigate both. Because think about that. She had to navigate the wheelchair with one hand and the IV pole with another hand. So it took a lot of practice, but we were able to follow her around to watch Meredith train her on how to do this task. Susie actually got to be the patient for a while and sit in the chair. And so it was a really hands-on approach to seeing up front how a skills trainer does their job.
That's good.
Claudia was very nervous about taking patients in and out of wheelchairs or in and out of elevators, and she was afraid that the elevator would close on the person. And so that whole day was meant to kind of alleviate her fears and build her confidence up.
We have about a minute left for today. Is there a particular slide that you want me to go to?
This is a good ending. This is a great ending slide. So we work toward a pyramid of skills for the interns, and back to that stretch, not stress. Like over the 10 weeks of each internship, we start with beginning skills and then add more and more complex skills. And then the last week or two, almost like that capstone of that pyramid, right? The most complex, maybe learning to use a piece of equipment or really build their productivity, whatever it, or maybe do a new skill that they had been wanting to do the entire 10 weeks. And that, you know, we're really working toward that the skills that they have are the ones that are needed for entry-level employment.
Well, I think it's pretty exciting what you guys are doing. I'm going to get to your contact page. Everybody's going to get all of these slides. There are a lot of slides today. You'll get to watch that video as well. There's a link to the video. We've had the contact information in the chat box, and it's here. It'll be on the slides and the emails. I think it's awesome what Project Search is doing. I love that you brought it out of Ohio too, and other states and other countries, and I love how it's growing. And again, I can't speak enough. The families that we've served that have had kids in this program, yeah, they're definitely singing your praises, and they are so grateful and thankful. Their kids are really happy and they're making money and they're loving their job, and they're at an employer that cares about them and treats them right. And some employers don't. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate truth, but that is such a big thing. And the happiness that is there, it's really, really a big deal. So thank you, ladies, for being here with us today. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and learning about this. You're going to get a copy of today's slides. It'll have their contact information, our contact information, how to schedule a free personalized consultation with us. And if you have additional questions that weren't answered, again, please reach out to them, to us, and we'll be happy to make those connections. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll be on the lookout for your email with a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording, and we'll look forward to connecting with everyone again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.